Good morning. Good morning, men of Jesus. My man, Hetty, thank you for the invite. Thank you, men of Jesus. I appreciate y'all so much what you're doing. And it's just an honor to be with you this morning. Now, is that my man Jarvis on the call this morning? My man Jarvis used to help me out every time I went in to Verizon. And so much so, when I moved here to the Atlanta area, if my kids had a problem, I'd say, go to this store and you ask for Jarvis. My man will take care of you. Now, for those of you that have kids and your kids are away, there is only, when you got people you can trust, that makes a difference. I'm telling you, it makes I tell my daughter, Kourtney, you go into the store and you ask for Mr. Jarvis, and he will take care of you. So, brother, thank you. It's so good to see you. So, again, Johnothan Hall, a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. Is anybody in Oklahoma City today? Caller, I know Hetty, you in the hotel. Is most of the group from Oklahoma City, or are they spread out all across the nation? Spread out. All right, well, y'all all need to travel to Oklahoma City. It's a beautiful place. So, born and raised there. Um, my kids actually still live in Oklahoma. So, my wife Detra and I will be married 33 years come June the 1st. So, praise God for that. Both of us born and raised there in Oklahoma. We moved here to the Atlanta area. It'll be 10 years ago, come August. So, we've been here about 10 years and we love it. My daughter, Kourtney, she still lives in the home that we own there in Oklahoma City. So she's one of our tenants. And then my son, Kelton, lives up in Tulsa. My son, Kelton, is 29 years old. And my daughter, Kourtney, will be 28 in June. So just a little bit about me. I appreciate the call. I want to talk about, when I think about confidence, I think about kind of in a couple of different ways. I think about it from a spiritual perspective. I want to talk about a practical perspective, and then kind of what do we do with it? What are we supposed to do with it? You know what I mean? But before I do that, I love the statements that you guys talk about when you say assisting men in their personal Christian awareness, improvement, and social enrichment. And I hope that I can add to that and what I have to offer aligns with that. And also better men, better families, better communities. Come on now. What that is that is spot on. So I want to start out with talking about my dad. It's so amazing to see Hattie's dad, and we actually just met for the first time. A story about my dad. Of course, I grew up on east side, Oklahoma City, and I remember if something went wrong with my car, my dad would say, "Go down the street and ask for Al, and he'll take care of you." And for those of you familiar with Oklahoma City, this was like this shop was like just a couple of blocks west of ML King on 23rd Street back in the day. So my dad would say, "Yo, take your car up there." And so I go up there and I walk in and I'll be like, "Where's Mr. Al?" Right? And before I could finish, they say, "Yo, you Joe's son, ain't you?" And my dad and I have the same first name. He didn't have a middle name, so I'm not a junior, but his full name is Johnothan. And the people that knew him real well would call him Joe. So they said, "You Joe's son, ain't you?" They could just tell by the way I looked that, and I'll be like, "Yes, sir. I'm Joe's son." And back then, I just didn't realize that it was a privilege to be able to go places based on my dad's name. And so as a kid, I was just kind of confident in who I was like, people. And then even in the school system, people knew my dad. They go, "You one of them hall boys, ain't you?" I'm like, "Yep." But that was good and bad because they also knew that if I got out of line, they make a phone call and it was a wrap. If my dad ever came up to the school, and I was in trouble. That was a problem. But the other thing, though, about a father is that if something wasn't going right, and I called my dad, and my dad came to the school, I'm like, oh, y'all in trouble because my dad is on the way. And it was just, I just had that confidence in my father, in the neighborhood, at school, wherever I went. I'm not saying he was like the mayor or anything like that, but as far as my world was concerned, my dad was everything. And so it brings me because people could look at me and they could basically say, you look like your dad. I was created in my dad's likeness. And because he was good, I had favor. It takes me to Genesis 1, the beginning. Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth. So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. So when I think about it practically, for me, I was really blessed with a dad that was very present, that was very loving and kind, that was known in the community for his strength, for his discipline. My dad had a good name, and me sharing his first name opened doors for me.
Hey, what's up,
So
big
when we
bro?
think about confidence, man, and I also know that may not be everybody's experience. That some people, you say that, and they be like, yo, bro, that don't mean nothing to me. For some people, that's some pain. So I realized that. Um, So hopefully we can move forward as men. And if we have the honor to be fathers, maybe we can change that around because spiritually, I think it's important that we understand whose image we are made in, and we can start there with confidence. I ain't got to say nothing else. You start there. And for me, it was just so real because that was my life. I walked into many a room as a kid and they said, I know who your daddy is. So imagine if we carry ourselves in such a way that people go, man, that dude must be a Christian. Because just the way he acts, he's gotta be. So I want to say spiritually, that's kind of what it means to me. Uh, Practically, when we talk about human nature and confidence, and some of you may have heard this, and psychology today, they say it takes a mere 7 seconds to make a first impression. 7 seconds. You got 7 seconds. People thin slice others based on how a person looks and sounds, more so than their explicit verbal comments. So you may be an amazing orator, but when you walk into the room, you got 7 seconds, and people just make a decision, fair or not. Now that you know, conduct yourself accordingly, right? So I think it's important that you understand practically that people make an impression in 7 seconds, right? Um, Along with that, the University of Melbourne Science Communication, they had an article and they talked about first impressions and any associated biases tend to stick for a long time. And not to mention, they are incredibly difficult to change. It's like, oh man, why? It's all thanks to the limbic system, which is responsible for our emotions. Some of the brain regions involved in the limbic system are also involved in the brain mechanisms underpinning first impressions. So, practically, when we think about confidence, something I want to equip you with to build your confidence is that we need to understand that first impression thing is real. As humans, they come to that conclusion in the first 7 seconds. And in times, it could be hard or take some time and some hard work to overcome that first impression. So I want to kind of give you some practical tools so that you know what you're dealing with so you can be more confident. So we talked about the spiritual aspect. We talked about the practical aspect. And those things are real. I just want you to know what you're dealing with. So as a wardrobe and lifestyle consultant, what I do, some of the things I do is that I give my clients an advantage from the jump when they walk into the room, right? Because I work with them on their wardrobe. I don't cookie cut. There's a process I go through to tailor make, the program for them. Some people are more casual than others. Some people want to be in a bow tie. So it depends on what your style is to an extent and your comfort level and what you're trying to do. But my goal is that when you walk into the room, you are aware of that 7 seconds. So you look amazing. And this could be for a job trying to get a construction contract, or this could be you're getting ready to be a speaker. Looking amazing depends on the audience and the circumstances. So that's one of the advantages I give my clients. If you show up for a construction gig and you got on a three-piece suit, they're gonna be like, bro, what, really? And you need to understand your audience and how you relate to them. When I used to work for Cox Communications and I would go meet with some of the field guys representing HR, I would not have on a suit that day. At the most, I'd have on like a polo shirt and some jeans. You need to understand your audience, and that's the other psychological aspect of it. If they're making an adjustment in the first 7 seconds, you need to understand who you're dealing with. Again, put yourself at an advantage, right? Which adds to your confidence. If you understand some of these factors spiritually and practically, you become more confident. And confidence is contagious. And confidence, you just walk into the room, you look good, you feel good, and you're going to do good. It has been scientifically proven. And so, practically, those are some of the things that we can do to build up our confidence, understand who we are in Christ spiritually, and then practically, it's important that you understand the psychological aspect of it. It's important that you put in the work, and then it's important that you walk in it and be confident. So, what are we supposed to do with this? I think confidence can be a superpower. I, what are you supposed to do with it? I think that we are to, it takes me back to the word, and some of us may battle with it a little bit. It's not, being rude, it's not being cocky, it's none of those things. Some of the most confident people I know are some of the most humble and also, how should I say, somewhat quiet. Uh, the loudest voice in the room is not usually the most confident. And I'll just say that again. The loudest voice in the room is usually not the most confident. Usually the loudest voice in the room is trying to cover up some insecurities. That's been my experience. So what do we do with this confidence? I love what the word gives us in Hebrews 10:35 and 36. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. So as you learn to be more confident, rooted in the word, which is different than some of the folks in the world look, we're not to throw it away. And I would say in those moments that you don't feel confident, what's amazing about being a child of God is that we can ask for help, and he loves it. He loves when we come to him. It is also in our weakness, we are made strong. So even in the most difficult moment, in the moment you feel the most unqualified, The moment you feel like, what is going on? I have no answers. You trust in him, and we can be confident in that. So just wanted to share a few things about confidence from a spiritual perspective, from a practical perspective, and what we should do as Christians with this superpower of confidence. Again, because we know the Lord, our confidence comes across different than it does for others because it comes from the inside out. Yes, I help people look amazing, but also as a lifestyle consultant, I help them walk in it from the inside out. And the clothing is just kind of the icing on the cake. And also because I understand the psychological piece of it as well is a tool of ours. But confidence comes from the inside out. This last thing I'll share, and then I'll open up for Q&A or direction from Hetty. Man, growing up, I used to hate to take pictures. It was just like, I mean, I was the ugliest one in my family. I had a fro. My fro was always crooked. I wore glasses. And yeah, my dad was amazing, but man, I couldn't pick out any nice glasses. It was whatever was the least expensive, period. It didn't matter. So I'm this dude and fro jacked up. I just wanted a family. And then I had glasses. And back then it wasn't cool to wear glasses, right? And it was difficult. Um, but the thing that I had going for me was that I knew my dad was crazy about me, and I knew my mom was crazy about me. And even though the ladies didn't love me at an early age, I always thought to myself, you know, if they only knew who I was on the inside. And I'm like, they're gonna learn that this dude's a joker. They're gonna find out, right? And I just had that inner confidence even as a child. So I would say not only is it important for us to have, but I think as men and as leaders, it's important to identify who may be lacking in others and help them build their confidence. I mean, we're here to help other people. So I hope that's been helpful. And I'm open up for questions. And back over to you, Hetty.
Man, thank you so much. John, that was good. That was good. Hey, I have you pinned, so you'll still be the main face just for when we cut up
Yep.
for audio.
Hmm.
But gentlemen, whoever has questions, just go ahead and jump in there. We'll just kind of be mindful of not to talk over each other if you hear somebody else talking. But just for sake of the way we'll cut this up later, we're going to leave Johnothan pinned. So any questions, any thoughts, any just talking about men and our confidence and how important it is. One of the things that I thought about was two things. How am I teaching my sons to be confident? Am I teaching them in the right way? Um, and again, the way we look, what we drive, all those things can matter and help us with our confidence. But I like what you're saying as far as internally. Like I just want people to know that, man, my daddy is God, uh, and I want to make sure that I'm properly living out who He wants me to be, and that kind of creates that confidence. But also thinking about my daughters, my daughter, what does that look like for me to pour into her and help her with confidence? Her being an African American girl, like women already have a position in this world. Then being an African American, there can be another layer of that, but just when she walks the room, that she can be confident, but not coming off as though she has, um, um, what's the word I'm thinking about? Not too strong. Like come in confident, but you ain't got to come in too strong, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah, I have one of each, a daughter and a son. I'm privileged. And I literally call from day one, I call my son the prince. And I talked to them about that. And I said, because you need to be reminded of the royalty you have in Christ. I said, not that you are any way, have to take for granted what you have, and call the daughter princess. I said, you need to understand that there is royalty in you, and you need to understand from day one. Now, I will say there has been some times that I've had to kind of shave that down a little bit. When my daughter will be like, "Yo, what you mean I don't get everything I want?" We have had to. There has been time where she's been overly confident, and she is really intelligent, and she learns really fast. So we've had to just talk to her about you know, the opportunity we have to love on people and not to take advantage of people. We're not better than people. At the same time, we're very confident. So it was definitely a work in progress. But I needed my kids to understand. I need that seed to be deep down in them. So when they get out into the world and they face challenges, they're ready. That's in them. Circumstances, the circle you stand in around you, right? But that doesn't change who they are. So I'm so glad you thought about that, because it's important that our children understand who they are and be confident.
Anybody else? We can't hear you, Bonds.
Well, I said for me, it was interesting you said that because I've been wearing suits since I was 7 years old. My dad was a pastor, so my brother and I were always suited and booted since 7 years old. So people all over the years, high school, always said, "Why don't you wear regular clothes?" So for me, I've been a little bit, I guess some people call it arrogance, but I call it confidence. I really don't care. So I had to but I also had to go back and let my son know that he can get his own style. So it bothered me, of course, that he didn't want to wear suits. So he got to grad school, now he wants to wear suits. And I'm like, okay, so he did. He was listening and looking. But I had to, like I said earlier, remind people it's not about me being arrogant. It's just this is what I feel comfortable with. I mean, to me, a bow tie, hand tie bow ties, and my pajamas have bow ties. So this is really weird today, but I just like to wear. I like to look how I feel. So I think it's important for us to communicate to people that way. It's not about me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. And I think as long as we communicate to people that we can always, because you need to look how you feel, in my opinion. So if it's sweats, for me it's suits. So I think just got to make sure that we know we have to be in charge of our own space and not make people feel kind of, but also not feel some kind of way about ourselves as well too. So I wanted to just say, how would you communicate that to a young person to say, be you, but how do you tell them how to be you, but also, not worry about what people think about you.
That's a great question, because there are adults that don't get that. I mean, think about the environment we live in, man, especially with the onset of social media. Man, that stuff can bombard you. And I think that if we're not careful as older, mature men, we can take for granted the negative impact of social media. So, I mean, when you think about how children develop, really, their brain is not fully developed to like 25, 26. So if I'm 12 and I'm on social media 8 hours a day, and everybody on social media looks perfect, and if you don't look perfect, they're telling you how to look perfect and all these things you're supposed to do. That's real. And that can mess some people up. So I think it's a great point, that we need to understand and model that you should carry yourself a certain way, and you can be you. Now, there are certain standards we have, and we teach people certain standards, right? And give people guidelines, our children, right? But you go, man, what do you really love? And when they say, I really don't know, that's okay. We got to be okay with that as parents, because some kids just don't know. They're like, yo, I'm just trying to get my homework done. And you maybe try out for this football team because you didn't play football. So now I got to try, and I really don't want to. All this stuff in their mind, right? I'm telling you, that's what we're doing. And then they have all this pressure. I just got this phone, and everybody on here is cool but me. And they're telling me I got to have sex, and telling me I got to do this. And you're asking me who I am? I have no idea. And that's okay. But I think as parents, we create an environment where they feel comfortable and confident figuring it out. And we lead by example, and we have the opportunity to impact that. And just talk about, man, and we need to be engaged and see what they do well and see what they're drawn to, right? See what they do well. And if we're engaged, we can kind of guide them in that space. So it's not an easy answer, but I think that as fathers, man, it's a big part of what we're supposed to do. And are you doing it? Are you real? Or are you just doing what the people in your family did? Kids know. Kids pick up on it. They be like, "Yeah, I get home. I'm home on Sunday when you get home, and you talk about how you hate being a pastor." As an example, I hear when you get home, you talk about how you hate your job. So, Dad, what am I supposed to do? If we're not careful, we need to walk it out ourselves. I'm not saying that's easy. I just left corporate America after 25 plus years back in August. So I run my consulting business full time now. So my kids get to see me walk it out. So are you walking it out? They really do, more is caught than taught. So yeah.